So I didn't know that that's all, that I thought that's all there was to culture. That's how stupid I was. But the things that I learned about culture, my mother taught me. She used to do all the things like prepare the food for winter and everything, dry corn and everything. And I used to help with what I could and watch her and everything, but I never did ever have to do it myself until after I got married. And as I said, I was married to a white man, and I think that he taught me more about drying corn and cleaning tanega and everything else like that than anybody did, because he would help with it. He'd do it, and he knew how to do it, and I didn't. So I did learn a lot of things, but I didn't know they were just culture. I mean, that they were cultural stuff. I said, but I guess I was always around it because I was Indian. And both my mom and my grandma would do things that Indian women did, and teach us things that we needed to know. And the things that they taught us were things like being honest. I've always prided myself on being honest, and I've always tried to be perfectly honest. Respect. We had a lot of respect for our parents and grandma. And I guess that we had a lot of humility. You kind of had to have, because you always had to share, and you always took care of your family. That was one thing that you did. You took care of your family. I have never had anyone that I had to tell to leave my house, leave my home or anything, or turn anybody away. And I've always fed them, tried to treat them good, and like that. And I made sure that I never did ever do anything like that to my family or people that come to my house. And they taught me those basic values like loyalty, all the things that we need to live by. But I think that honesty and respect and humility are the greatest ones that we have to live by, and we have to live by them. We have to live by those things every day if we're a good Indian. And try to do what is right and live the right way and treat other people with respect and help somebody every day. And I think that's why I'm used to I've always been in a helping profession. And it's just like when I retired and wasn't doing those things anymore, well then, except for my family, and I've always taken care of my family, my own family. And I've got good grandchildren. They're smart, they're honest. We've tried to raise them the right way, and they are good people. Now that they're grown up, I'm proud of my grandsons. I'm proud of all my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and proud of my children. And I think that the hardest thing there is to do is to raise it. I would not want to raise a family or anyone in this day and age, because I don't understand it. I know about drugs. I know what they are and what they do and everything because I studied, but I have never experienced like pot or any of that stuff because we didn't have to deal with that kind of stuff. And when we were growing up where there was prohibition, they couldn't have liquor on the reservation, and if somebody did go and get tie one on, well then they were sober the next day, and then they might not go and do that again for probably 6 months or a year. And so then we really didn't have to put up with that kind of stuff when we were growing up. And all of the things that people did in those days was everything was family, your family. We're family oriented. You did everything with your family, and it was just a natural thing that you did. It just come naturally because your family always participated in the things that you did and everything. And so it was easy. It was real easy because if they worked, you worked. If you wanted to do something like go to a party or something, they went too. And and so it was, as far as us growing up, good. Well, then I think that we had it all over the children nowadays because our families were there and our families took care of us. And of course, when we were in school, we were okay.
Yeah, when we were in school, the matrons took care of us.
That's right.
At school, when you were in school, I said, everybody, the teachers and the matrons and everywhere you went, somebody was there. There was somebody that was going to tell you what to do or watch you. So it was still kind of like home. I mean, you had that authority around you all the time too. But nowadays, I think that I always sit there and think about it. I always wonder what's going to happen because, like, you never heard of, well, at least when I was growing up, I never ever heard of somebody beating up an elderly person, or like you hear today. And I always think, what's going to happen? But you never ever saw kids running around alone, little kids like runs around now. You never saw anybody's kids running all over. If they went, they took their kids. And they didn't have babysitters home with them or watching them and stuff. So the life here on the reservation is real different than it used to be for everything, that's right. And but I don't know what will happen if this communications things ever stops, or I mean, everybody would be just lost. They had a blackout here not too long ago somewhere, or something happened on something up in the air, and nobody could use their beepers, and that's all you heard on the TV was the doctors were upset and everybody else was upset. And I was thinking, gee, something's up in the air and something went wrong and everybody's upset. But I always wonder what would go wrong. Well, what would really happen if we lost all the electricity here or something, in the whole country. I always wonder what would happen, like in cities and stuff. Of course, on reservation, we could get along here, but then I don't know about other places. But sometimes you tell your kids the things like my kid. One day Orville said to me, Mom, I bet when you was young, I bet all you did was sat in the house and watched TV. So I said, oh yeah, we did. I said, we didn't even have a radio most of the time. I said, we didn't have TV. We didn't have electricity. I said, well, what did you do? So I said, you made your own things up what you wanted to do. I said, for fun. Because he was always saying, gee, it's so boring around here. There's nothing to do. And to me, with all this stuff they have, there's lots to do. if they want to do it. But they don't understand that this isn't the way it always was. And I think for myself personally that people have to teach their children to go back to the old ways, to do things from scratch and stuff. I think that has to be, unless our kids won't be able to make it either. If something would happen, especially if all the older people are gone.
Can you share what it was like in the when you were young at Christmas time?
Well, when I was real little and I lived out in the country with my grandmother, she used to make me dolls, and that I used to think that was pretty neat till I got in town one day and there was a lady, her name was Mrs. Grimm, and she made me a doll out of cloth. And it was real huge, and I don't think I'll ever forget that doll. It was the first doll I ever had that my grandmother didn't make. And then we had a man that came during the Depression that came here, and he bought me a doll. There were those big dolls, they're all kind of, you get them wet, they kind of crumble up. But, oh, I wanted that doll, and this man went and bought me this doll for Christmas, and we used to have nice Christmases though. We always got things, at least got a present and got candy and stuff. But the only thing I didn't like about Christmas, and I never did like it, was at church. I'd go to church, and we went to Sunday school, and I always had to be the black person in the plate, and that I didn't like. But other than that, the ministers and stuff were nice, and Christmas was always a lot of fun, I thought. And we always had, to me, to have a holiday dinner or something, to me it was always, and it still is to me too, it's always dried meat soup and dried meat everything, dried corn, dried turnips, dried squash, the whole bit, and fry bread and oja. If you have that, and you can have everything else, turkey, anything else, but if you have that, to me, that's a holiday. We always had plenty of food to eat. We always had a lot of food to eat. I mean, our folks always thought we had a lot of food. My grandmother always had a lot of food. And she made everything. She made ham, she made bacon, and she made butter. She had chickens. And when I was little, we used to go to Vail, and she used to barter. She used to trade this stuff for like sugar, coffee. Not flour, because she always had her own flour made, but the things she couldn't make herself, was she'd trade her butter, her eggs, and this stuff for those things. And I just think that was kind of neat, because she made them. She made pounds of butter and put her own print on them and everything. Everybody would come and buy it from the store. They used to just wait for her to take her stuff, and she always cleaned her eggs, and she canned them and everything. And so she really worked hard. She worked all the time.
When Ione was telling you about her doll, her first bought doll that she had gotten from that man that worked for my dad, I remember him. He was from Oklahoma, and his name was Dave McVeigh. And my dad used to haul wood when we lived in Sturgis. He did everything, because he kept a team in town all the time. And he used to dig the basements for people's houses in Sturgis. And he used to haul wood from up in Vanocker Canyon. And he got a sawing mill, or whatever you call it. Saw rig. And he would haul that wood, and he'd cut it up, and he'd sell that wood. And he made good money. Even though it seemed like he worked all the time. And but we always had what we needed. We always had food and like that kind of stuff. But I remember that Christmas very well. And when that Ione's talking about. And we went to the Presbyterian church up in Sturgis. And it's where the Presbyterian church is now, but they have a new one there now. And I remember we went there for Christmas Eve. And that was where we got our presents and stuff. And this man that worked for Dad, excuse me, he went around and he collected money from all the people that Dad had sold wood to, and if they couldn't pay it, well, he'd just charge it. He'd let them charge it. And this guy worked for him, so he knew where a lot of these people lived and everything. And then when he went around and got money with him, that was what he bought Christmas presents for us with. And I know my dad couldn't do anything about it because it was already done, but he was sure worried about how we was going to eat. Always remember that, because boy, we got some good presents, you know.
Anything you wanted, he was going to get you.
And that was Ione's first bought doll. I got one too. I remember that so well. But talking about our families and culture, I could tell you a good story on Jim, but he'd probably really be mad at me. When I used to go to, on my work, I had to go to workshops, and I worked for Indian Health Service and learn. And I went to a workshop in Denver, and that was when they first got the 638 law. And so then Betty Claimer and I were project officers for 638. And that was one of the places we took training. And here, when I was gone, my husband went to town, and Jimmy wasn't so big, and because he had already gone to school up in Bismarck at United Tribes and learned a lot of things about culture up there, and boy, he really liked it. And so then he built a sweat lodge out in the country, and out by where my garden was. And he built the sweat lodge, and they had all these kids, you know. Of course, I'd say Jimmy must have been about 12, or maybe Billy older. But anyhow, they were going to show my grandkids how to have the sweat and what to do. So they built the sweat lodge like they had shown them up in United Tribes. And but it was small, and they all squeezed into this sweat lodge. And they had a fire in there and everything. And then so my husband happened to come home then, and it was in the summer and it was dry. So he made him take it down, put the fire out and everything. And so when I came home, they were telling me about this. And so then I said, well, what did you do? And they said, we prayed. And I said, oh, did you? I said, what did you pray about? And they said, well, Jimmy did most of the praying. And so I said, what was Jimmy praying for? And he said, he was praying for better commodities so the people on the reservation would have enough to eat. And I really laughed, because I guess that was what he did pray for. And he was teaching them that they were supposed to pray for things for other people, not themselves, you know. And then Grandpa came home, they said. But they learned a lot when they went to United Tribes, and that's where they learned all about sun dancing. They learned about sweats. They learned about all the ceremonies that we do and everything. And really, it was Carol's family, and then of course Carol did those things too. And it was her family that kind of got the rest of us started in that, which was really good, because when we were growing up, we didn't do any of that stuff because they wouldn't let us, you know. And so it was good. And now I'm real proud of my family and proud of my grandsons, and glad that they can do the things that they do. Like Jim is the director of the cultural center, and I know he's learned, he's been able to do a lot of things there with people. And of course Bill, he's in building houses for the people on the reservation that can't get houses some other way. So they're doing real good, doing good things for the reservation, and I'm really proud of that and proud of them. I think that's about all I can think of right now to tell you. And maybe that is enough, we can finish it up when you come back. Ione, are you through?
Right?
Do you want to say anything? We can, when I come back from Bismarck, we can get into these questions maybe. But did you want to say any closing words?
On there?
Uh-huh.
Well, just about, I think Dorothy and I have covered about everything when we were growing up, and about our lives, and the fun things we did and the things that weren't so fun. And I still think that people have to help their children, talk to their children, and no matter what my kids do, I don't care what they do, I still go with them. I mean, I would never ever not go for my kids. And I think all parents have to do those things and talk to their kids and stuff. And I think, to me, the thing that they really need to have is respect for themselves, respect for other people, other people's things. And if they love themselves, well then, and if we can teach, and if the parents teach the kids love themselves and carry their own consequences, their actions, I think that's what life's about. But I think you have to have respect for everything and everybody. I don't know what year it was, but when I first got electricity in the plot, nobody had electricity. We didn't have running water or anything down there. And the first year I got electricity, I had Josie O'Neill was the lady that was going to Gettysburg, so I had her get me, every time she went, I had her get me more Christmas decorations, because I was going to have Christmas for all the kids. And the year before, I'd used regular candles, and I'd caught my tree on fire. So I thought, well, that couldn't work. So this year I got bubble lights, and they were candles. And gee, they were pretty. They just bubble up, And so every time she went, I got more decorations. And when Christmas came, we really had a good party, boy. We had a big tree, filled the whole room, and just decorated, And that was really something to have electricity there. And then we didn't get water there. Well, the years I lived there, we never did have running water, but after they put the Sawahe business in, and we're up here, well, then they have running water now in the plant. But it was really interesting how the things worked out for getting electricity. It was it was really something to have.
You'll have to call another time.
It was really something because the first thing I got was an electric washing machine, and I got sick, but so my then husband and my daughter was washing the clothes, and when they got done, I said, "Well, get up, hang them out," because I didn't have a dryer. So I got up and hung them out, but that was my first experience with having electricity here on the reservation. But it was really nice, and I still have the iron that I got. I had it in Gettysburg. I'd gotten it over there when I worked there, And it was a baby iron, and it's really heavy. I think if I hit somebody in the head with it, probably do them in because it's too heavy, you know. But you can take that iron and it'll just press anything, it's so heavy. And it still works. It's just real antiquish, but it'll still work. And I still have it too. And but then it's really something how electricity changes a person's life. You get so you depend on it so much. And I think that's it's kind of bad to depend on electricity, because if we ever had to go without it, I think there's going to be a lot of people hurting by not knowing how to do other things without it. So in a way it's real good, and in a way it's not. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is we should teach our kids how to do without things like this, these electrical things and stuff too. So if something comes up, they can get along. 'Cause I know everybody that's my age could get along. They wouldn't know how, but the younger kids, I don't know about them. And but now they have water in the plant, and they have running water, and they have electricity. It's kind of uptown now. Not too many people right now, but someday I'll bet you there'll be a real good town there again. And that's about what I know about that. We used to get all of our water just out of a railroad dam that we washed and scrubbed and everything with. And then the train, we had a train that ran through the plant, and they used to haul water in to drink. And so everybody had a barrel, a stone boat they pulled, and you had to hire somebody to get your water. It was $1 a barrel to have them get it from the railroad to your house. And but everybody had a lot of barrels and stuff for drinking water. It was nice that they brought the water in, because they didn't charge us to haul the water in. All you had to do was get it to your house, and just came in great big tanks. And it seemed like the railroad, I always thought that when, like nowadays, they don't have any mass transportation that I can see that would benefit the people of this nation, because they got rid of all the trains. And there's hardly, I always thought that the trains, even though them days they just run with coal, and there's a lot of coal in this country, so I always thought they should keep their mass transportation, and they should keep their coal as a backup. You know, they could always move people, and they could always move things across this country. It wouldn't charge them that. I mean, it cost them that much. But now it's a little different. I've never been on the fast trains they have. They have across the country, but I don't know. Well, they couldn't have them out here like that. But that little train that used to run here, it ran from Mobridge to Faith and turned around and went back. So it came up one day and went back the next day. And so whenever you needed anything from Mobridge or any place else, well, you sent for it and ordered it, and then it came. It might be kind of late coming, but you'd get it. And that was good. I mean, a lot of people didn't have no cars or anything. And it was hard to get things unless you had a truck or something to go after it with. And it was hard for people to get things home. And I think as we get more things and more electrical things and more easier to get things and stuff, we don't appreciate them like we used to appreciate things. We kind of just take it for granted. Well, it's there and we can get it, you know. And I think that's kind of a bad attitude too, because if we ever got to the place where we don't have it and they have to go back to something that they can't do, it's going to really be hard on people. So I see that difference in when we were growing up, the things everybody had to do to get along and make it. And then our roads wasn't like they are today either. Our highways, they were kind of like little trails. They were just graveled and they were narrow, and nowadays you can get on this highway and But you never had wrecks, people getting killed like this all the time, like they do today, because nobody drove that fast. You couldn't. And then a lot of times on a ride on the highway, you could get stuck, like with the gumbo. Wasn't even getting off the road, you could get stuck. And so we do have a lot of improvements in this country from just during my time anyway. But sometime I think they should go back to slowing down a little bit. Kind of smelling the roses on the way or something, you know, kind of too fast. And things are too fast sometimes. I think that's lots what's wrong with the young kids too. Everything's too fast for them.
I think talking about things being too fast nowadays, things do happen too fast. The world is moving too fast. The kids nowadays, they have they're really frustrated, a lot of them, with the things that are going on, like what with the wars and the bombs and just everything. And they're not, I think that's where a lot of the drugs come in and stuff, is they're not able to cope with everything, and then they get into this drinking and taking drugs and everything, and that kind of makes them feel good, forget, and feel good. And I know that when we were kids, and we didn't have alcohol on the reservation, and it was okay. People would go and drink, go to dances and drink, and they would maybe go to a dance or drink, like, say, once every 6 months or something like that, and then that was the end of it, because they had to work hard in order to survive, and they took care of their families. They worked to take care of their families, and everyone worked. They knew they had to do it. And I can remember that the communities worked together, like in the 30s, I think it was in the 30s, 40s, I guess, maybe, when they had those WPA programs, and they built these big dams around the country and everything. The communities would have gardens, and everybody would work, and their gardens were all one big garden. So you had to get along. I mean, you had to work together, and and get everything growing good and everything. And people thought more about getting along and helping each other, instead of, like today, there's a lot of gossip and talking about different things that they could spend their time doing other things. But I can remember that when they finally did say that they were going to, what they called, turn the liquor loose. And that meant people could go and buy liquor, because Indians couldn't buy liquor then either. They had to get somebody to buy it for them, and like a non-Indian, and there were always white people that would buy for the Indians. And so when they did turn the liquor loose, and I think that was in 1952, wasn't it?
I don't know what year it was.
It was in the early 1950s, but I can remember that. I was living at Cheyenne Agency, and everybody was going over to Gettysburg to drink, and it was just a mess. And of course there were some people that didn't go, but I can remember, I think he was our superintendent then, or he was superintendent of the schools or something. What's that guy's name? Anyhow, well, then he went over to the liquor store, and he was going to buy a drink in the bar. And they were all waiting for him to get his drink, and here he got a great big glass of milk. And told him, "You can drink in a bar and not get drunk," he said. And that was Harold Shunk was his name. And he said, "I'll show you how to do it," he said, and they did, and everybody was just laughing. But then after that, why, then it seemed like that's when the problems really, really started on the reservation that were bad then, because things were happening to people. That's when things like all the bad things happened. People started having wrecks and and things like that. I know we had one brother that was that wrecked out by the VE ranch and got killed, and then he had 4 boys, and then they were raised without a father, then without their father. But I think that then bad things started happening to the families on the reservation, just about all the families on the reservation. And I know I was real young when I got married. I graduated in 1941, and I got married in July of 1941. And I had my first child in 1942, a year later. And had my second one in 1943, and my third one in 1945. And then in 1947, I had a little girl that died. She was premature. And then in 1948, one of my sons was born, and in 1951, the other one was born, the last one that I had. And all I knew, I was just out of school, graduated from school, and all I knew was taking care of my family, trying to take care of my children, raise my children. I didn't do anything else for I don't know how many years, until my youngest child started school. Because the only time that you really have your children with you is from when they're born until like when they used to start school. And you had them for like 5 or 6 years. That's the only time you're going to have those children all to yourself in all of their life. In your life, you'll have your children to yourself. From then they start going to school and moving away from you. And nowadays it's that happens earlier because they go to Head Start and like that. So you don't have them all to yourself all the time. And I remember I wouldn't work when I had my children, when my children were little, because I wanted, to take care of them myself. And so I did that until we moved up. We were going to move up to Eagle Butte when they were going to flood the old agency by building that Oahe Lake. And I worked part-time because we lived at the pump house, and I used to get they had electric pumps, and I'd pump water for the town, the Old Shine Agency. Had to keep the tank full and everything. I did that, and I did cleaning. This was my first job with the Bureau. I worked for maintenance, and my title was a charwoman. I cleaned the office. I made 85 cents an hour. And then in 1959, when we were going to move up here, then Mr. Nessett said, he said, "I'd like to have you go to work full time, Dorothy." He said, because Todd, that was my youngest one, was in school, and you could work now, he said. So then I did go to work then full time. We moved up here, and I went to work in the dormitories. And I worked with a lot of children. We had like 60 kids in each unit up here, and so I always worked with at least 60 children, never less. And then I did that. And then I had a break in service, and I went to work as the property clerk for the tribe, and I worked for them for a year or a little more. And that was when we bought the telephone company. We had a telephone company, but we bought the telephone company from Harding. And
Henry Harding.
and that was what's his name?
Henry Harding.
Henry Harding. And we gave $100,000 for it, and I remember that very well because I was property clerk and my sister was acting treasurer, and she wrote the check for them.
I wrote the check for $75,000. So
That bought the telephone company, and so we had almost paid for it, you know, and now it's worth really a lot of money. There's been so many improvements and everything with our free telephone service and for the elderly and everything that we get. I mean, it's just really a good thing. It's something good that happened to the reservation, and it's still here. Frank Duchesneau was the chairman then when we bought it. But it was a good thing for the reservation, and it's so much better now with the telephone company. That's one of the things that have really helped a lot of our people, like get to the hospital, call the hospital when they needed help or needed an ambulance or something. It's saved a lot of lives, and the telephone company is good for the reservation. Of course, being raised at LaPont, when I wasn't in boarding school, then you learn to appreciate things like that, because we had electricity and water at the agency, but when I was growing up in school, when I went to school there, but when we got home, we didn't, you know, at LaPont. So now that they have electricity and water all over the reservation, and telephone service, and the roads are much better and everything, you can really appreciate those things, because especially if you've had to live without them. I raised my kids mostly down at the Old Shine Agency, and then we moved out in the country. We went on the rehab program. My husband had to quit working for the government because he got real sick from gas and oil, and we went out in the country and lived. And when we went out there, I can remember my daughter, my oldest daughter, she was just really disgusted. She told her dad, she said, "My mother's not going back to chopping wood and carrying water for anybody. I'll have you know that, Dad." She said, "You're just going to have things different for my mother," she said. So he did. Got electricity in as soon as we got out there. He bought a 3,000-gallon water tank from Rapid City, and they hauled it out. He got it hauled out here, and they dug that hole by hand. I remember that. The family did. Everybody worked on that. Their big old hole. And we did get a pump on it, and we did have water. We never did really have a regular bathroom out there. But it was nice. In fact, it was so nice I still live out there, but we got water now and a bathroom. So that's kind of where we are. But what I started to talk about was the alcohol thing. When Wayne Duchesneau was in there as chairman, they made a proclamation that there was going to be, is that what you call it? That this was going to be a dry reservation by the year 2000, And you know, we're 1998 now, and I know that it's just kind of, that kind of a feeling has gone by the wayside. It looks like it has. But one of the things that I also see is that there are a lot of people that drink, that went through that era where they drank and, you know, stuff, that have sobered up, and they're, you know, the families are doing good. And I see that as a kind of, maybe it will be alcohol-free reservation for some people, because they've quit drinking. And I know families, whole families that have quit drinking, and they take care of their kids and everything. But they said that we could never have an alcohol-free reservation because we let people come in within the boundaries of the reservation and sell liquor. But then it was alcohol-free at one time, and that was before they turned the liquor loose in the early 1950s. So I think that there are things that can be done. Another thing that I think that that the children are getting educated, and they have to know what is happening to them with their lives and everything. I know the suicide rate is down, which is really a good thing, because, you know, just in my own family we had 3 suicides, and that was just from alcohol and drugs. And things have happened to other families on the reservation. And of course they know what it was like. We always thought nothing like that would ever happen in our family, and it sure did. And I know it can happen to anybody. So, but then the suicide rate for Cheyenne River has gone way down. So that is one good thing. So we do see things that are happening that are really good on the reservation. And it's mostly just listening, sitting down with I think probably the thing that would change things the most for people and their children, like, is to sit down with them and talk and try to get some good communication going, and not react like children. Your kid says something smart to you, and then don't get mad and say something smart right back, because you're an adult. And kids are kids nowadays, and this world is a lot different than it used to be. The language they use is really language that is terrible, and it's just, you know, and that alone I know makes a lot of parents really angry. You know, and a lot of grandparents, because they don't like to hear that kind of stuff. But it's that you have to sit down and have good communication with your kids, and really honestly get interested in them and see what they're doing. Ask them what they would like to do. Find out the things that they want to do. And it's not all just running around drinking and taking drugs and riding around and doing all the fun things, because life isn't just all fun. You know, that's not the way life is. And that is something. Getting families more involved with their children will change a lot of things, doing things with them. I know that from experience. And just things can be better here on our reservation. But we do have a good reservation. We have a lot of people that are working, that are educated. We have more educated people now than we've ever had. We have people that work hard. They try to come up with programs for our children and for everybody else. And the elderly have it made here on this reservation. You know, we get at least $50 every month because we get almost $30 from having our phone bills paid, and then we get $20 cash, and we get big discounts like eating our meals at the nutrition center that only costs us, a full meal only costs us 75 cents. You know, where else in this world do you get that? You know, and it's just, there are a lot of good things that happen here on our reservation. And Cheyenne River has always been a leader to other reservations all over the country. When they made this thing about having a drug-free reservation, alcohol-free reservation by the year 2000, every meeting I went to, no matter where it was, Washington, down in the Southwest, in the East, and all over, that was one thing that was always brought up. They were all looking to Cheyenne River to make a big change, you know, and see what they did so that their reservations could be that too. And they have always looked up to Cheyenne River as a leader everywhere we've went. And
I think one reason that they do is because of that pipe. You know.
Yeah. One of the reasons, that's right, one of the reasons that they do look at this at Cheyenne River is because we do have the pipe, the calf pipe. And I think that that has made a big difference with us. I know that there are a lot of people, a lot of breeds, there are a lot of people that that don't believe in cultural ways, but culture isn't just praying and stuff, because you can do that anytime, anywhere. Isn't the spirituality? It's the way you live every day. I mean, if you're good to people, get along with them, try to get along with them, not say bad things about people, help one another, do things together, do the things that you're supposed to, the things that really make a difference. Go back to the basic values that everybody has had, like honesty, respect, humility, all those kinds of things, then your life would be better. And if praying any way you want to pray, that's your business. But if you do go back to spiritual ways with the pipe and everything else, I know that it will make a difference. But then that's for you. Any religion that there is, if it's good for you, then that is fine. That's okay. No matter what it is. If it helps you, fine. So that's another thing that we have to look at here, you know, on the reservation. And we have a lot of good things here. So that's kind of the way I feel about things, and you know, the kind of things I'd like to see happen. And I think that's about most what I have to say. I know we started the Nacha Council now. Hopefully we will be working with the courts, coming up with some good ideas for the judges, and try to kind of get things changed around here. And I'm sure it's that will be a good thing. That will help. The people won't be so angry when they hit the jail and stuff, and they'll look at things and own some of their actions and really look at them, take a look at them. I think that will be able to help them that way.
Would you tell what that is and tell what the background is, because people don't know?
The Nacha Council is a council of elders that's going to work with the judges and the prosecutors. We're going to give some advice to them because they're stumped about a lot of these cases that they get in the courts. and they really don't know what to do to really help the people. And there are a lot of people, there will be people all over the reservation that will help with that kind of stuff. There will be people that they can go and talk to if they think they're getting into trouble and stuff. And, you know, that are really concerned about their own actions and everything. And I think that we can give them some good advice, kind of old-fashioned advice, like the way the Indians used to take care of their problems long ago. Like they never used to hit their children or anything like that. They had real good ways. They had a lot of good ways. And this is kind of what we're looking at. And, I know we won't take care of all problems, but I know we can help with some of them. So that's kind of about the way things are now.
Hold on.
Wait, I want to get some coffee.
Oh, okay, hold on.
So some people think that they owe the churches something, but all these churches came to these reservations because the government was trying to Christianize the savages. That's why we're like we are. Like one community belongs to one religion and one church, and the next community belongs to another religion. And that's the way it is all over the reservations. It's like that everywhere. But what they did, they subsidized all these churches to come in here and do it. That's why they had Catholic schools and all this stuff too. They were subsidized. Because I read a report when we moved from the Old Shine Agency up here, and they were talking about what they did. And I work at the Episcopal Church. I mean, I'm their treasurer for this St. John's. And so we didn't have any money. We were really low on funds, and there's a lot of people that weren't working, and a lot of people wouldn't come to church. And sometimes we'd get a lot of people come to church, but there still was no money because they didn't have it. So we had a bishop's committee meeting. So I said, I'd like to find out. Well, this priest was talking about what could we do to get money. And so I said, well, I'd like to ask the government to subsidize us. We're an Episcopal church, and we don't have the money, and the people don't have the money. So could they subsidize us to keep us going? No. Being they're the ones who brought in these religions, so let them subsidize us. I said, well, we can't do that. Ask the government to subsidize us. Oh. But that's one reason that people have different religions around here. But I believe myself that any religion that's good, even if it's good for one person, to me, it has to be respected. Just one person can do it, but it helps them. So higher you believe, and we all know there's something, a higher power. We know that. Everybody knows that. Because of the seasons and the way things go and how things grow and how they die and how people are born and they die and they live their circle and then they go and they come in, go in and out the same way with nothing. And so everybody knows that there has to be something. So however you perceive your maker to be, everybody, that's the way I look at it. That's for them. That's fine with me. But I was baptized Episcopalian, and I guess I'll always belong to that church, but still I go to everything else too. I think I've been to every kind of religion there is, just to see, you know. And I think that everybody has their own beliefs, what they believe, and I believe that I believe myself. I was baptized there, so stay there. I just won't change churches. But I think a lot of times that religion, I never thought religion was just about money, you know. But here lately I've been thinking that's what religion's all about, is just about money. I always thought that church was for sinners. And so I go to church. And I said, but here lately it seems like all church is about is money. I think anybody can go any place, not only to church, but they can go any place and offer whatever they do, whatever they do good, is to go and help somebody. And to me, that's just as good as money. It's just the same thing as money. And that's what I believe in the church, that people that don't have money can come there and do the very same things at the church that they would do just to help anybody else. And so to me, that's just as good as them giving us money. That's what I look at religion. I know you need money to operate and all that, but like we have that soup kitchen at our church right now, and that's our outreach program. And there's 3 churches that came in. They call it an alliance, ministerial alliance. And there's a Catholic church, a Baptist church, and Episcopal church that's doing it right now. And so and then they have it at our church, the Episcopal church. And there's a lot of volunteers, that young people that have came in there, and they come in and they help clean and stuff. So to me that means a lot, because it's got to be clean, everything's got to be cleaned up when you get done. And then as our outreach stuff, beside using our buildings, tables and chairs and everything else, our dishes, why we give them $50 a month for food. And then these other churches, they do too. So really what we're operating on up there, and it's free to anybody. Anybody can go there and have soup. At Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays they have it. And then there's different people and it's mostly men that come in. There's different people that come in and help and cook and stuff, and there's all these ladies, even ones that's working, come in and serve. So to me that's just as good as saying, well, we're giving our share to this church, the ones that belong there, whether they have money or not. That's the way I look at it. Because even so, if they didn't have no money at all, somebody's got to feed them. They got to have something to eat. But anybody, even if somebody's working, can go there. And then they did have a free will offering thing, if anybody wants to give something, they can, or somebody has something extra and they want to donate, they let them, stuff like that. And then we had this Terry Montreal, and he goes and buys the groceries, and he's a guy that's running this food pantry business too. And the food pantry was at our church. Bishop Gessner was alive then, and he was in Sioux Falls. And he was the man that was helping to get the food at Second Harvest. And he was also helping to get it here, paying the transportation here. And so for our outreach then, we were sending $50 a month to that delivering of it. And then when he died, he still has a fund that is providing the food and stuff, and helps with that. And but we didn't send our $50 anymore, because they told us that they would get the food here themselves. So then we started helping Habitat with $50 a month. And they had the soup kitchen down at the Catholic church, but then they couldn't, down to that All Saints shelter, but they couldn't have it anymore. I don't know what the deal was, but they couldn't have it there anymore. So Father John was the one to come up and wanted to know if we could have it. If you can have it, he said, well, then we'll help with the food. So that's what they do. They also give money for this food. And if anybody else that comes to eat there wants to give something, and it's for everybody. I mean, people have come from over and go to the hospital, and then you have money or anything, they can go over there and eat, or anybody can. So they don't refuse anybody not to eat, So I think it's a good deal myself. But I think things like that count towards them not giving money because they don't have it. So if they didn't subsidize all these churches, maybe we'd all still be having our own religion, our own Indian religion and stuff. But it isn't only like that here, it's like that everywhere. Because they were trying to Christianize all the savages. So that's why it's like that. And I was really surprised when I first read some of those books that they wrote up, the reports they wrote about this reservation anyway. They had 15 men that were their first Indian police force was men on horseback, and they had 15 men that were the police. And a lot of these guys, they became sub-chiefs. They weren't really chiefs of the tribes, but they were sub-chiefs, and they were made sub-chiefs by the War Department or the government anyway. And in this book, it was telling about how they were made chiefs, and then it's told about if you wanted to leave the reservation, then you had to get permission, like to go to Wakpala. If somebody died up there, say you wanted to go, it was your relative, gave you so many days to go, travel, get up there with your team and wagon, and then have the funeral, and then so many days to be back. And if you didn't get back when you came back, you went to jail because you didn't honor whatever their orders were. And so that's the way it was. Really rough here. I mean, so it looked like to me what was happening there was that they were trying to break that spirit, but it just never ever happened. But that's about what I have to say about the churches. I mean, it really surprised me that they were subsidized by the government for that purpose. But I see now, like now, they want us to become a parish, and there's no way we could pay a priest's salary and all that stuff. There's just been no way we could do it. And a lot of our chapels don't have. They're shut down. They don't have any services. The buildings are all going to pot. They're just wrecked up, but the people want to keep them in their districts, you know. So they've came out and they've made a report here, and they told all the ones that they were going to close and stuff. And one of them was St. Paul's at La Plante, which really surprised me because they don't have services there. They don't have enough priests to go around anyway, you know, and do all this stuff. We haven't had priests, and we don't have lay readers because they don't get anything at all then to live on or anything, which they used to. And see, it's kind of like giving somebody candy for a long time and then taking it away and say, get your own, but still do these things. That's kind of like the way it is. And it's hard. But what they want them to do now is they want to sell the buildings. They want to sell the whole bit, the ones that's closed. Once these people get together and pay that insurance on those buildings, it is kind of a problem for the diocese, because if somebody gets hurt on the land, or if they sued them, they would have to sue the diocese. So it looks like they kind of want to get out of the land business, I guess, church business, unless they said that this church here, St. John's, is about the only one on the reservation that keeps going. And we have that one at Dupree, and it does pretty good, and we have one at Ascension down there that does pretty good. But like all the ones out in the little communities are closing up, which is not good, you know, at all. We don't have lay readers for them or anything, which we always had before. So it's a little different with our churches too.
Those churches were really going full swing when we were growing up. Everything we did had something to do with the church, you know. And but then when that was because they wouldn't let the Indians practice their own ceremonies and stuff like that, and they were really doing good. And then after they got laws passed where they could practice their own religion and everything like that, then that was when those churches started going downhill. And I know for a while right here in Eagle Butte, they didn't have hardly anybody to go to church, you know. And there are things about the church that you're raised with and everything, like if I feel like I need to go and take my communion, because I'm baptized and everything, and I'm Episcopal too, but then I'll go and take my communion. You know, I can go to the church and take my communion, and it makes me feel better. But then too, what really makes me feel good is like if we really are having real problems and we feel like we really have to go to church or to pray, we can go and pray, and we don't have to wait for Sunday. We can go and pray whenever we want to in a sweat. And whole families can go in that sweat and pray about the problems that they're having. And it works. It works. The more you pray, the more ceremonies that you do, you know, for your families and with your families and everything, it seems like they're answered more.
And whatever you do in there stays there.
Yeah. Whatever you do in there,
It doesn't come out.
it doesn't come out of there. That's, you know, your prayers, and anything you say or anything, well, then it's respected and it's kept, you know, confidential. What you do in there, well, then you can, it's accepted. There's no, that's not what you do and like that. You go and you do what you have to do for yourself and for your family, and that's good. Because you don't have to dress up. You don't have to just make darn sure you're dressed up to go like they do to church. You can take your families and you can sit with your families, and you don't really say your prayers out loud that you're feeling in your heart that you want to say. When you go in a sweat, you can, you know, that's just the way it is. And that's what is really, that good kind of communication is what helps. And that'll help more than anything if you're having problems. I know that. So the people, all people don't believe that way, and that's okay. Just so that they live good lives and try to be good people. And, you know, think about their basic values and be good people. And all people, there is good in all people. You know, you can take a negative thing and you can look at it and you can come up with something positive out of it. You know, and that's what you concentrate on. You concentrate on their strengths, not their weaknesses. And then you'll be able to get something done. I could probably talk for another hour, but I think I've said about everything that's a little bit about everything that I could think of.
Well, before we stop here, I would like to thank you for asking us to do this. And I'm really glad that you're recording these things and that you're going to use them for a good cause. And I'll be happy to see whatever I said or whatever I did on this, if I ever get to. But I want to thank you for your trouble, your time, because I know this has been a long time. And it should have been done, this should have been done a long time ago when we had a lot of real old elderlies living, you know. Somebody should have did this, I think. So I just want to thank you guys for coming and doing this.